Hey VC, it's Jonathan, your cheap and cheerful record collector. Hope everybody's doing well out there today. I was digging through YT Studios, which is YouTube Studios, and they show you all sorts of analytics about who watches your channel, how long they watch it, blah, blah, blah. Most of my viewers are 60 years or older, mostly from the United States. But what was really interesting to me is that 80% of the people that have watched my videos have not subscribed. And I don't know what the deal is. You just press the button. But anyway, if you watch it and you like what you see, please subscribe. It really helps me grow my channel. Just hit the bell and then hit the bell on top, and that'll let you know when I have new videos coming out. And if you like what you see in a particular video, give me a thumbs up. Make a comment. I always try to answer all the comments that are made on my videos. So I really appreciate it if you subscribe. You really help me grow my channel. So enough of the commercials. Last night, I was watching a documentary about Little Richard on PBS. And really good documentary, really interesting stuff. But of course, Little Richard, with his ego, the size of the universe, he said, I created rock and roll. I alone created rock and roll. And I'm like, nah, not so much. I mean, yeah, he certainly moved it along and added things to it that had never been done before. And he was certainly one of the creators of rock and roll. But I don't think he created it all by himself. So I got to thinking about all the people that really helped start and create rock and roll, and I thought I'd do a little video of it. So I'm going to have the 5 people that I think really created rock and roll, and then I'm going to have a couple of precursors, and then I'll have some honorable mentions afterwards. So the precursor to rock and roll was obviously jump blues, and one of the biggest proponent of jump blues was the great Louis Jordan. This is a fantastic album. Look out, it's Louis Jordan and the Tympany 5 on Charlie Records. This is a UK pressing. And he does Keep on Knocking, Run Your Mouth and I'll Run My Business, A Boogie Woogie Came to Town, Ain't That Just Like a Woman, Jack You're Dead, Junko Partner, House Party. It's fantastic stuff. All recorded in 1930s and 40s, up to 52, 53. But if you want to hear really the beginnings of rock and roll and a lot of the things that started it, dig into Louis Jordan. Just fantastic. One of my absolute all-time favorites, Louis Jordan. Also, another guy that influenced a lot of rockers early on, and I was lucky enough to see him later towards the end of his career, and it's the great Joe Turner. Big Joe Turner. This is his greatest recordings, according to them. He has Karina Karina, Midnight Cannonball, Chains of Love, Shake, Rattle, and Roll, which then Bill Haley and the Comets covered, Honey Hush, which Bill Haley and the Comets covered, Flip, Flop, and Fly, which Bill Haley and the Comets covered, etc. TV Mama, fantastic stuff. If you're not really that familiar with Joe Turner, you got to check his stuff out. This is a great album to start with, greatest hits. And you listen to this stuff and you go, oh yeah, there's a lot of rock and roll starting there. Also, one of the great rock and roll, early starters of rock and roll is the great Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Mostly gospel, but the way she played the guitar and the way she rocked it out really influenced a lot of people. Fantastic. Sister Rosetta Tharpe. One I don't have a record of is Big Mama Thornton, who was the original writer of Hound Dog that Elvis then did later. Got to see her also actually at the same festival where I saw Big Joe Turner, 1970, Ann Arbor Blues Festival, what a time that was. All right, so let's get to it. The 5 people that I think really created rock and roll. Again, it's going to cause controversy. Everybody thinks somebody else did. We'll talk about that when we get to the end. To me, you can't talk about early rock and roll, the creation of rock and roll, without talking about Chuck Berry. This is his greatest hits. Roll Over Beethoven, School Days, Johnny B. Good, which I think is the greatest rock and roll song ever written. Maybelline, Nadine, Sweet Little 16. I mean, the Beatles, the Stones, everybody covered. The Beach Boys. I mean, Chuck Berry wrote the songs. He played guitar. He created all those guitar riffs, and he sang on all the songs. If our country hadn't been so racist, or if he had been white, he would have been much bigger than Elvis or anybody else. Chuck Berry, absolutely, number 1. Number 2, I got to go with the guy I saw the movie last night, and that's the great Little Richard. Wop, bop, baloo, bop, bop, bam, boom. Nothing like that had ever been done before. Good golly, Miss Molly. The Heebie-Jeebies. Keep a Knockin'. This is a great album. Little Richard on Specialty Records. This is a Record Store Day release. There's Little Richard banging the piano and carrying on. You all know Little Richard, but boy, something else, man. Again, a lot of gospel, a lot of church influences on his early stuff. Just fantastic. How about some people from the South? Then you got the South, you got the Southern white boys who got into rock and roll and went to listen to the black churches and listen to the music. And then you had one of the greats, the great Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly and the Crickets created so much stuff, made rock and roll what it is today. Everybody, all the 60s people love Buddy Holly. And I read somewhere that his first record was released between that time and the time he died in the plane accident was 18 months. All the stuff he created in that short period of time, just amazing what he would have done if he would have lived longer. This is obviously a repress because the original just has the Crickets, but this has Oh Boy, Not Fade Away, Maybe Baby, That'll Be the Day, Rock Me Baby, just amazing stuff. The great, great Buddy Holly. And another white boy from the South, pumping the piano, The Killer, Jerry Lee Lewis. I mean, come on. The stuff he did, it just hadn't been done before. This is, I'm still looking for an album that has all the greats. This doesn't have Great Ball of Fire on it. It does have You Banky Stomp and Crazy Arms and High School Confidential. But, you know, as later on in life, he became much more of a country guy. But his early stuff, freaking ridiculous. There he is with Sam Phillips. Yeah, Jerry Lee Lewis. Bringing a lot of that country music into part of that rock and roll. Making that blend of blues and gospel and country. Jerry Lee Lewis. And the next one is going to be, number 5 is going to be a controversy for sure. People said, hey, he just ripped the people off, blah, blah, blah. He did more to grow rock and roll from a small base to overall acceptance throughout the world. And of course, it's the great Elvis Presley. This is his first album, early pressing, not in great condition, but I had to have it. Early pressing Elvis Presley. I love that on the back. And we all know about Elvis. But yeah, I mean, he didn't write anything. The guitar was more prop than it was a instrument for him. But he certainly, more than anybody else, expanded the range of rock and roll to new audiences. And for that alone, he has to be included in my list. I think it was John Lennon who said, before Elvis, there was nothing. Sort of overstated. But yeah, Elvis Presley. So those are the 5. Elvis, Jerry Lee Lewis, Buddy Holly, Little Richard, and of course the great Chuck Berry. To me, those are the 5 people that did more than anything else to help create rock and roll. And now we're going to have honorable mentions because there are a lot of other people that came out around that time who played rock and roll and moved it along, but didn't quite have that kind of influence that those 5 did, at least not to me. We can't talk about early rock and roll without talking about the great Carl Perkins, Mr. Blue Suede Shoes. I'm sure you all know the story about how he had recorded Blue Suede Shoes. He was scheduled to be on the Ed Sullivan Show, and on the way to the show, he got into a car accident, ended up in the hospital, and 2 weeks later, they scheduled Elvis Presley to go on Ed Sullivan and do Blue Suede Shoes. So he never recovered from that. His career really never recovered from that. But this is a great, great album. This is his original Sun recordings. Put Your Cat Clothes On, Matchbox, Blue Suede Shoes, Boppin' the Blues, Dixie Fried, one of my absolute favorites. Great stuff. Carl Perkins. Can't talk about early rock and roll without talking about these boys, talking about your country boys. And that's the Everly Brothers. Their harmonies are just so unbelievably sweet. Everybody from Simon and Garfunkel to the Beatles, everybody wanted to sound as good as the Everly Brothers sounded on their early recordings. So this is a great 21 Original Classics. Great album. Has all the hits. Bye Bye Love, Wake Up Little Susie, Bird Dog, Take a Message to Mary. Kathy's Clown, just great. The Everly Brothers, a real early influence. And then from New Orleans, Pumping the Piano, we have the great Fats Domino. This is a great 2-record set of early Fats stuff. There he is. There's the man himself. And yeah, he changed a lot of things because he brought that New Orleans pumping piano into rock and roll. Blue Monday, I'm Walking to New Orleans, Blueberry Hill, etc. The great Fats Domino. Singers, voice like no one else, arranged like no one else. Roy Orbison. This is his great album, Lonely and Blue. Roy Orbison sings Lonely and Blue. There he is on the back, without his sunglasses for a change. And Only the Lonely does on here. I Can't Stop Loving You, Blue Angel, Raindrops, I'm Hurtin', 22 Days. Just fantastic. Roy Orbison, one of the early rockers for sure. And then the last two are two guys I absolutely love. First one is Gene Vincent. Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps. Blue Jean Bop. Ain't She Sweet? I have a couple albums of his. Early rocker, just great. Gene Vincent and his Blue Caps. And then the last one I'm going to show was a guy who was killed. Actually, he was in a car with Gene Vincent when they were traveling in England, touring in the early 60s. Got into a car accident and he was killed. And it's Eddie Cochran. Did the original Summertime Blues that The Who ended up doing later on, as well as many other bands. 20 Flight Rock, Long Tall Sally on here. Also does Blue Suede Shoes. But yeah, one of the greats, Eddie Cochran. So there you go. To me, those are the guys and gals that started rock and roll. I've left out some. I don't have any Bill Haley in the Comets albums for some reason. I'm sure there are others I'm leaving out. Let me know who you think should be in the, if not in the top 5, at least in the honorable mention category. Okay? Again, I hope you really liked this. If you did, please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Make a comment. Like I said, I always answer comments. Maybe this will become a thread and people start showing early rockers of who they think should be included in the list. Okay? All right. Until next time, everybody. Peace.